Good evening, Razorback fans. We're going to welcome you to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Electrical Supply Guy studios. We are part of the Believe and Buzz Radio networks, where you can hear all of podcast platforms as well as Buzz 2 on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast, as well as the TuneIn Radio app. You can look up the Believe Radio Podcast Network. And I am your host, Porter Hayes of Sports and Culture, Arkansas. Alongside me, as always, is Jacob Davis from Arkansas Fight. And all live shows are presented by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark, Arkansas, and Bet Online, where you can find the fastest and easiest ways to wager on all your favorite sports. Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. So head on over to Bet Online, or use your mobile device today to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Arkansas gets back on track with a 41-27 win over Auburn. And between us and the guys at Arkansas Fight across the board, we had this as a win. I had it a little bit closer, some others, just because of you had to take into fact that they haven't won this game since 2015, haven't won in Jordan-Hare since 2012. So, I mean, that's always in the back of your mind when it comes to this game. But pretty much once Arkansas got started, it just didn't seem like Auburn had it. They shown flashes of competitiveness, but when it come down to it, other than Tank Bigsby's one big touchdown run, Auburn really didn't show anything when it come to threatening in the game. I think Jacob's lagging a little bit on there, but Jacob, you there? Cannot hear you, Jacob. Anyways, while we get Jacob getting his technical support going, we some interesting game notes from the game, and those browse apologetics, or whatever you want to say, the ones that just really have called for him and just not his play calling. But this is the ninth consecutive game with 100 yards rushing. Arkansas has recorded over 200 yards on the ground in 7 of the 8 games. They've totaled over 400 yards total offense in 7 out of the 8 games. Jaden Hasselwood tallied his 20th consecutive game with at least 1 reception dating back to 2021. And then KJ Jefferson recorded his 4th game of the season with over 200 yards passing, including his 2nd consecutive game with the 200-yard mark. Raheem Sanders rushed for over 100 yards in 6 games this season, and he is now the quickest person who he broke Madre Hill's record of getting to the 1,000-yard mark in 8 games. So quite of a feat for Rocket Sanders this year, quite a feat for the offense this season, how much they evolved. And when you thought that things weren't really clicking when it come to the bye week, they really needed this bye week. And Jacob, I don't know if you can hear yet or not. Can you speak? Let me see if we can hear you. No, we can't hear you yet. Something's going on with the mic again, but
can you hear me now?
There we go. There's Jacob.
Okay.
Man,
Okay, sweet.
live game
Yeah,
situations, man.
that's what happens when you're live sometimes, and you don't ever know what to expect.
Well, I was just, I knew you could hear some of it, but we were just going over some of the game notes and just
Yeah,
for those people who was talking about Bryles and, really ragging on him. And when you look at that game, the game notes, and I know Auburn was down, but I mean, it's still pretty impressive when you look at Rocket Sanders is rushing 8 games, which is a new record, quickest to get there. KJ Jefferson has really, came in as a passer when that was really his weakest mark. And just the balance of the offense. So I guess go back to you and what was your overall take of the game?
yeah. Did you see those couple of throws from KJ, especially on that slant touchdown pass to Hazelwood? There was a big third down throw that he got to Landers on the sideline that was just placed perfectly. The guy's got some confidence going right now, and I really think that right now Arkansas's offense is humming. Tom Murphy of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette up there in Northwest Arkansas, he said a quick morning stat. This is from this morning before his flight back home. Arkansas is averaging 246.8 yards passing, 245.8 yards rushing, and 492.5 total yards per game to rank 13 amongst all FBS teams.
Did you say 13th in the country?
Yes, 13th in the country.
I wonder where those PFF guys are. The ones that just said that Bryles was just so horrible on these third downs and these fourth downs, and we need new offensive coordinators.
Yeah.
It's crazy what happens when a team clicks and they start rolling. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Execution.
Yeah. How many weeks have we been preaching that?
Yes, every single week.
Execution. It's crazy how good, and this is nothing taking away from the offense or putting more emphasis on the coordinator, but it's crazy what happens when you execute. You make everybody look better. So, I mean, when you're going 7 out of the 8 games, when you're doing all this offensive production and you rank 13th in the country in total yard, did you say total yards per game?
Yes. Total yards per game is like 492, 492.5, 13th among all FBS teams.
Pretty interesting when that all comes.
And the scoring clip is continuing to rise too. A lot of, you look back at the sluggish offensive performance against Texas A&M. You think about the 26 points you scored against Alabama, and then with your backup quarterback in there against Mississippi State, you only scored 17. Outside of those 3 performances, the offense has been clicking for the most part and producing numbers. And now, after the BYU game, BYU is ranked 8th in the country at one point this season. They were no slouch, even though they are kind of licking their wounds or mending their wounds right now. And then you think about the Liberty game coming up. You've got Auburn, and we know all about the situation going down there on the Plains. But the Arkansas defense, the first string, held Auburn to 13 points, which is pretty solid. I mean, the backups allowed a couple of touchdowns late in the fourth quarter, but man, I was pretty pleased by how well the Arkansas defense played on Saturday against Auburn.
Well, this shows you what crazy of a year this college football. You got Alabama fans crying about the refs after a game, after a loss. Ole Miss and Lane, as much as we love him, is complaining about the players just falling on the ground. I mean, if that doesn't show you how crazy and ironic and hypocritical of a college football year when you've got fans complaining about refs when they've gotten the most obvious calls all year, for years in the past. Yeah. And then you got somebody like Ole Miss who they blatantly tell guys to fall down. Then it happens to them, and they're complaining about it after the game. So nothing can really surprise me anymore I mean, we're looking at what was that, 2007 all over again? I mean, look at TCU sitting there undefeated. We're just waiting on them to lose to put the icing on the cake.
Right, absolutely. And you've got Georgia and Tennessee coming up. That's going to potentially be it's going to be the number 1 versus number 2 team in the country because Ohio State and Tennessee tied.
Yep.
Can you just imagine the world of college football if Tennessee goes out there and breaks Georgia at home. Like, that's going to be a pretty crazy matchup. And you've got Arkansas. Their next 3 games could potentially be against ranked teams. I mean, and
Well, Liberty's
you
ranked.
talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, they're ranked number 23.
Yes.
You think about a couple of weeks ago, you said, yeah, the path to 9 to 10 wins is still there. And we were probably laughing about it a little bit, thinking, maybe it's not. Browse, Odom, and Pittman, they have their guys going, I mean, full speed ahead right now, looking really good. And Arkansas's defense is healthy, more healthy than they have been since the Cincinnati game.
Well, and last week we were talking about how good that South Carolina win was. Now they reared their head, and I loved every minute of it. You know, I know that you don't want Missouri having any steam coming to the Arkansas game, but for every rule, there's an exception. And I loved every minute of South Carolina packing the house. And I'm going to say I played a part of it. I thought they were going to be good. I want them to be good for the sake of the rivalry, but I'm telling you, to let Missouri just manhandle you the way they did at home. And this is the thing. Let's think about this, Razorback fans, just for a second. And I know you don't follow South Carolina or anything and see, but just imagine 8 games into the season coming off of a bye. Arkansas's been there before. Well, we didn't really know what they were throwing at us, and we just couldn't find a way to get our offense going. I mean, you just got done beating Kentucky, and now you're struggling for a way to beat Missouri, and then that's what Spencer Rattler said after the game. And again, we're talking about it. Last week, everybody's wanting to save their offensive coordinator's job. Oh my gosh, 2-game winning streak, man, they're on a roll. Man, they could go get a good New Year's Day bowl game. They turn around and lose to Missouri, and now the pitchforks are out all over again. And I bring that up to say this is that's how quick things can turn around. That's how quickly things can turn around here at Arkansas. We've seen it for the past 10 years. So I don't feel sorry for them, though. But, I mean, it couldn't happen to a worse team.
And you're seeing it with the Kentucky fans, too, because they were ready to put a statue up of Stoops.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're ready to – and now they're ready to get rid of him because he's lost 2 straight and 3
they're
on
on the
year.
basketball season. Every November. I mean, other than when they had Benny Snell – you know, that running back, and they did really, really well. They haven't really, when it come down to it, they haven't produced when it come down to it. I mean, you're getting –
They haven't beat the teams that they need to beat to get to the next level.
And Arkansas, you know, that's the thing. That's what Arkansas is lacking. We've beat the teams like last year. You beat the Mississippi States. You finally got that monkey off your back with LSU. And then you turn around like this year, you drop it to Texas A&M. Man, what would we do to give that game back? I mean, seeing the dumpster fire. I mean, I tweeted out to Peter Burns this morning, ESPN. I mean, Texas A&M is a doinked field goal away from being 0-5 in the SEC. This is like, man, you're paying millions of dollars to. Number 1 recruiting class ever. You got the Gig'em boys out there every Friday night or whatever doing their little yell. I think I'd give it up if I was 1-4 in the SEC. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. And I know you were talking about how I just came across a tweet. Rocket Sanders, man, how incredible he's been. I don't think he gets enough credit. I know nationally around the SEC because he's consistently led the SEC in rushing all year. And he's done it against every single team that he's played this year outside of, I think he had an 80-yard game against Mississippi State, in which that was just a funk of a week. He's been over 100 yards each single week. And the guy has, let's see here. I just had it up. He has 156 carries, 6.7 yards per carry, 8 total touchdowns on 1,041 yards. And we were talking about it. Darren McFadden didn't even get to 1,000 yards that fast. Now, I'm not gonna say that, you know, Rocket's in the same breath as the old GOAT number 5, but man, to do some things that McFadden didn't do is awful special.
5-10 years ago, 16 carries and 174 would have got you National Player of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, and this is just, I mean, this ain't to upset or ruffle any feathers, but we're in the day and age where it's wide receiver and a quarterback age. It's just where we are. And they don't pay attention to the running backs when it comes to national recognition. Now, if Rocket Sanders doesn't get first team all SEC running back, then let's light the pitchforks. But when it comes to him going to New York, it's not going to happen because Arkansas is not that good of a team. I mean, it took everything they could to get Darren McFadden there 2 years in a row, and there's still debates on what year he got robbed, So when it comes to Rocket Sanders and the job he's doing this year, it's very impressive, but it gets lost in the limelight. Like you brought up Will Levis and how they're still trying to kind of, in a way, push him. I mean, they're still trying to push these quarterbacks, and they're still trying – and I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why they keep on pushing all these quarterbacks that they're going to be projected first-rounders. They're going to – I don't know if is there that much money wrapped up into these guys that they're marketing them, and they have to push them no matter what. Because, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because I'm going to bring my team up to it for a second, because last year, DJ – they had him line up to do the Dr. Pepper, had him line up, had the big, all this stuff going on. He was going to be the face of the program. And as soon as the Georgia game was over with, you didn't see him no more.
Right.
So it's just, that's the nature of the beast. And they have their mindset that this guy's going to be an all world, and he might turn out to be a good NFL quarterback. But just what he's doing this year, what he's doing, I mean, you can't sit there and say he had 80 yards passing and three
interceptions on 16 of 23 or 24 passing. Like, it was an incredible, like, a efficient number of completions. But man, like, the yardage there, I mean, you're playing the 103rd worst pass defense in the country, and you can't get 86 yards on them. That is suspect. And KJ Jefferson, no, he's not a great passer, but he's a complete player. Like, if he's not going to get it through the air, he's gonna get it on the ground. But I want to commend him on the job that he has done, trusting his receivers. Like that touchdown pass to Jaden Hazelwood on a slant. Those are passes he was not completing last year, unless he was throwing to Traylon Burks. And Traylon was catching everything. He would catch it if it was 10 feet in the air. Like, I made a comment about it yesterday. Katron Jackson was on the sideline. I said, man, Traylon would have caught that. Traylon would have caught it in triple coverage, But the rate that he's trusting his receivers and the development that he has had with Kendall Browse. And that's the impressive thing most of all to me, is the leaps and bounds that he has jumped through to be an improved quarterback. He is scanning all over the field. Like, he's getting to his first, second, third, fourth, maybe even sometimes fifth reads on some plays. That's a testament to Kendall Browse developing him. Don't just forget about the PFF scores.
Well,
you can watch him and tell that he's improved.
Well, he's trusted himself. I think that's where that confidence comes in. He's confident as a passer, and he's confident in a run, because he's looked at. And he's not just, his biggest knock early in the year was he's too predictable. He's too predictable. Right. Well, when you don't know who you got to count on when you're throwing to, you've got one receiver, or you're going to run. Matt Landers stepped up, had 5 receptions for 5. He was targeted 5 times, 4 receptions for 115 yards. So, when you got that guy, that's his second time he's surpassed 100 yards receiving this year.
Yeah.
When you had that, and you look, I cannot remember which play it was specifically, but he looked, checked all of it, and then went and ran. And I don't
20 yards.
Yeah, 20 yards. And so when you have that type of, that capability where you can do both, now, instead of this guy's a run first person, you've got to respect both of them equally with him. You just got to do enough to get the job done. You don't have to rush for 100 yards and throw for 350 a game. You don't have to do that. But the fact that he threw for 234, 1 touchdown, he was sacked 3 times, but, you're 16 of 24. That is leaps and bounds from what I seen earlier in the year when he was just missing these easy throws.
Absolutely. And another thing I told you I was going to bring up before the show, was how Kendall Briles' offense has developed. I mean, you had nobody at quarterback when he came in. You had Malik Hornsby and KJ Jefferson, and you didn't know what you had in either guy. And they brought in Felipe Franks to kind of stabilize the quarterback position. And on offense, they were like ranked 84th in the country at 391 yards per game. And I think they only scored, let's see here. Let me scroll right back up. They only scored 25 points per game, which ranked 87th out of 128 of the teams that were in Power 5. And then you go back to last year, they were averaging 30.9 points a game. He was in the top 50 as far as offensive production went. The total offense was 443 yards. So you jumped up almost 50 points. And then this year, I mean, you jump up another 50 yards again, and then you jump up almost 2 points a game. 3 points a game, and they're 36th in the country in scoring offense. And if you take out some of the Texas A&M and the Mississippi State performance, you got a pretty daggum good offense. And we already went over with what they're doing total offense wise too. That's just also another reason why Kendall Briles, man, he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the country, and the hate that he gets is so undeserved. And I think we've said it a couple of times on this podcast, plenty of times on this podcast. But the hate that he gets, man, he doesn't deserve that. He doesn't at all. I mean, the guy's producing at an elite clip, and this is the best offense we've had year after year after year as far as improvement since the Petrino days.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is something that I just overlooked, and it's crazy. You look at 16 carries, 174 yards, did not have a touchdown.
Yeah.
Didn't have a rushing touchdown. That's crazy to me that KJ had 2 and Rashad Dubinion had 2. But, I mean, 4 rushing touchdowns, and that's where you look, again, down the stretch when you're looking at a team – like Liberty, they're going to come in, and of course there's the talk of, well, Arkansas manhandled BYU and Liberty. They're coming in ranked. And I'm telling you what, you put a number by their name, they're coming into your stadium. I believe it's homecoming. So they're going to have something to prove because their only loss is to Wake. So, I mean, they had a guy that had Day Hunter had 213 yards rushing on BYU on 23 carries. Jonathan Bennett had 247 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Day had 1 touchdown rushing. So this is going to be another balanced offense when we come in. And I'll tell you what, this is the biggest thing that really impressed me that we have yet to not really see from Arkansas, but you don't see much of it. They were doing a 3-drop-8. They seen that Ashford was running the ball and having success, and they got out of it. They adjusted. And how many times have we said, well, they just don't adjust well. They don't adjust well. Well, they did, and it ended up – I mean, if you would have told me before the game that Tank Bigsby would only have 67 yards rushing and a touchdown, I told you last week I expected him to get 150 and 2. And that was just my prediction. Even if he got his 150 and 2 touchdowns, we still could win the ball game.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting 67 yards and a touchdown, and Ashford had 102 on the ground, and then he had 285 through the air with a touchdown. So, I mean –
and 41 of those 67 yards was on a touchdown play.
Yes, that was the big run. That was the play that I was talking about at the first of the show, that was the only point in time where I seen that they were a threat to the game. Other than that, Arkansas did really well when it come to controlling the game. It just seemed it's weird. Like, I guess it was that 11 a.m. kickoff. It just seemed like it took a little bit for the game to go on. It took a little bit to really get things to where things were clicking. A road game, at Jordan-Hare. And again, you're coming off a bye, so you're coming in fresh. Some of these guys haven't really stepped on a field, in a couple of weeks. Some of these, just coming off, just the reps in practice. So as soon as that rust got off and they got clicking, I was very impressed by the teams overall. And even on defense, I mean, they did enough. I mean, when you look at a guy who had 285 yards passing to only give up one touchdown, they were getting a lot more pressure on the quarterback this time. It really seemed that they only got 3 sacks, but when it come down to the pressure, they were really doing a lot to disrupt Ashford when it come to the passing game.
Yeah, and Ashford was pretty efficient as far as throwing the ball. He was like 24 of 33 passing. Yeah. 285 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, he was sacked 3 times. But I mean, I don't really have it broken down for me, really, what he did in the second half. But I think 2 of those passes were padding stats in the fourth quarter against Arkansas's second team defense. I think I mentioned that earlier. But yeah, he did a lot of that damage. I think he had like 160 something yards passing going into the fourth quarter. And I think he threw a couple of bombs there late to kind of get the score back to where it was a little bit more respectable. But Arkansas, man, from like the first 15 or for the first 45, maybe 48, 50 minutes of that ball game, it was all Arkansas.
So you're talking about the fourth quarter. You're talking about the fourth quarter. He had 135 yards passing, 5 for 14.
Yeah.
On the pass, and he was no, not 5 for 4. He was 5 for 14 with 5 rushes for 14 yards, and then he was they passed for 135 yards in the fourth quarter.
Okay,
so you take the 235 or 285 and you minus that, so you're looking at 150 again. You know, so yeah, I mean it's just you bring up a great point when it comes to you got the second team in. Really getting them in there, it makes it really look when you look at you're coming off a 2-game winning streak, and you're like I said, we've said this before. You're not a program that can overlook any team at all, especially a ranked team. When you're not ranked, and I'm telling you, I think Vegas sees Arkansas win because it's crazy to me that a ranked team's coming in here and they're such a big underdog. That blows my mind. And I'm sure the money will move. I'm sure they put that out there to get some money on Liberty, because this time of year in November, everybody's upset hungry. What's the upset we can pick and put money on? So they're throwing this, and I'm not saying that it's not going to be that line. I think Arkansas could win by 17 to 21 points. But they're throwing this bait out there to get bettors to jump on that Liberty upset so they can win some money.
Right. Yeah, and for those people that are trying to bet, you go onto my Twitter page at Jacob Scott Davis and tweet a few things out for Bet Serious, and Arkansas's 14.5-point favorites, and they're 47-8 at home at DW Reynolds Razorback Stadium against non-conference opponents starting in 1998.
Yeah,
and
what's Sam Pittman's record against the spread?
I don't know about the spread, but I do know at home against non-conference opponents, he's 5-0. Morris was 4-3, Bielema 11-2, John L. Smith 2-1, Petrino 8-0, and Houston Nutt was 17-2.
Now, I don't see this going to be a runaway. I don't. No. I mean, they might win it. I'm going to say way too early prediction, 14 to 17 points. I think they're going to do enough to manhandle this game and keep it out of arm's reach. But Liberty's going to do everything. It's going to be a Missouri State game all over again. I just think with a different outcome. It's not going to be as close. Yeah. It's not going to be as scary. This is a different team. This team's got a different head on their shoulders. They come into that bye. All right, we got out of the bye. Let's go make a run. And I think Sam Pittman even said that. It's time to make a run. And you look at Ole Miss, the one team that we thought that was not very, when we look at the losses and where was the loss going to come from, we were pointing to that Ole Miss game. Now they're looking a little Jekyll and Hyde-ish. You don't know what kind of team you're going – and you don't know what team you're going to get after, because, look, LSU's got Alabama. They're going to go into that game. And if they can compete with Alabama, then I'm going to be a little bit worried if it's a close loss. I'm going to be a little bit worried when it comes into the Arkansas LSU game.
Yeah.
If Alabama just imposes their will, look at Kansas. Look at Kentucky. these teams that are riding these highs, and then they get put on their rear end and they lose a couple of games, they turn into non-existent teams. And I think that might be the case when you look at LSU.
Yeah. And a thing to think about it, historically, Arkansas and LSU have played the week after LSU plays Alabama. And so you kind of get LSU at kind of a lull where they're kind of beat up and they put all their eggs in a basket to beat Alabama. But that was under guys like Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. Now you're so well coached under Brian Kelly that LSU's dangerous, and you're going to have to really have the same kind of game plan to me that you had to kind of attack Robbie Ashford, because Jaden Daniels can run. If you can keep him one-dimensional in some way, maybe spy Drew Sanders on him, who's a really fast linebacker, to kind of keep Jaden Daniels, from really exposing Arkansas secondary and weaknesses there. And really, the last couple of weeks, we haven't seen any issues in open field tackling, especially in the second half of BYU and this whole game against Auburn. So I think Arkansas has a good chance, though, to take care of business at home. And that's the only thing before I'll let you get into yours. I think that's their only good thing right now is that Arkansas's got LSU at home.
Well, we can't take anything away from those coaches you named because all of them have won national championships. So, you look, even go back to Nick Saban and what he did there. And then you had Ed O. He won. Les Miles. He won a national. So, it's Kelly has not proven. I mean, he's shown what he can do with that talent and turn things around. But we all know well and good how fast things can turn around. I mean, anybody – depending on the team you're playing, can look good. There for a while, Arkansas was that team that was making Bo Nix look like they were every week. It seemed like the quarterback that played Arkansas's defense looked like a Heisman Trophy contender. So, but we are coming up after a break. We will continue the conversation of the football game, and then after that, we will touch a little bit on the exhibition game against Texas. Their upcoming season starts next week, and we'll get into a little bit of that after the break. Do you need those pesky stumps ground before the winter? Your pasture brush hogged, or need your driveway bladed? Here at Grind It Right Outdoor Services, we offer more than just stump grinding. We have recently expanded our business to include tractor work as well. So along with stump grinding, we offer bush hogging, land clearing, grading driveways, placing, and even spreading gravel. We are locally owned and operated, so call Danny today for a free quote at 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641. Again, that is 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641.
Shelby Taylor Trucking serves all your timberland needs in South Central Arkansas. With over 50 years in the industry, Shelby Taylor Trucking has established themselves as trustworthy leaders in the industry. From planting to harvesting to hauling your timber, Shelby Taylor Trucking is ready to serve you. Follow them on all social media platforms at Shelby Taylor Trucking. Learn more by visiting their website at staylortrucking.com. That's staylortrucking.com.
Camelot Exteriors specializes in identifying hail, wind, and other storm damage, as well as residential and commercial roof installations and re-roofing. We use only the highest quality materials from certified suppliers while putting a lifetime labor warranty on all of our roofs. Our mission is to provide our customers with the highest quality roofing project customized to fit each one of their needs and to provide exceptional service through the entire process. Camelot Exteriors is based in Norman, Oklahoma, but we proudly currently serve 9 other states as a premier nationwide roofing company. So call us today at 833-799-7663 for your free estimate. Camelot Exteriors, your storm damage restoration experts.
McCoy Tiger Drug Store of Sheridan, Arkansas, has been the top pharmacy in all of South Central Arkansas since 1895. They were also the 2020 Good Neighbor Pharmacy of the Year. They not only fix you up with your prescription with timely and friendly service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They're located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-942-5121.
If you want the best service and prices in Northwest Arkansas and Southwest Missouri for all your plumbing and electrical needs, then look no further than Corey Hyman, the plumbing electrical supply guy. Corey is in full steam ahead and providing the best electrical, plumbing, and septic supply service around. So call Corey at 479-301-8220 or email him at chindman, that's HINDMAN, at andersonp.com. Again, that is 479-301-8220. And we want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast, and we'll continue our talk with the Liberty game coming up. It's going to be a tricky game, but I think the more that you look at it, you respect the opponent, you respect that it's a tricky game, you're not going to be caught up in, and I think the Missouri State game is going to give you a big template on how not to overlook an opponent. I mean, that's just my opinion on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a rough thing to talk about there. Yeah. That game had so many other things going for it. It was the Bobby Petrino return and stuff. But man, when you're FBS SEC team fighting for relevancy in the West, you got to take Missouri State seriously and go out there and beat those guys with an inch of their life. Now you have and I love what Barrett Solis said. I found this on Twitter while we were on break, and it said Barrett Solis on Twitter, Arkansas and Liberty will play on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see how Arkansas does against an SEC coach since they didn't play against one yesterday.
Yeah,
I think Solis and Auburn alum, but yeah, that's the thing. You know, Arkansas was 4-1 against Hugh Freeze while he was at Arkansas too. I mean, while he was at Ole Miss. So,
well, he had other things.
Yeah, he had other things on his mind, all night long.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's you've got to think about how big of a game plan that guy's going to have. He's looking to potentially jump back into the SEC. We've been talking about it all year long. Brian Horson's on a hot seat the last two seasons. Try to get Hugh Freeze, and in this culture now of college football, I mean, basically what Hugh Freeze did and cheating and I mean, outside of the extramarital affair stuff that he did, he might have got into. You got to think about the recruiting deals and stuff that he got Robert Condici, for goodness sakes. I mean, he was like the number one overall player, and people started turning their eyes like, oh, this Freeze guy, he's a player. And
well, it's funny you say that. Hugh Freeze, this is from ESPN 2 days ago. He just got an 8-year contract to 2030. So I don't think we're going to have any issues of him coming to SEC anytime soon, because here's another thing. What we're looking at is I don't think he's going to come to the SEC because he sees what's going to happen with college football, and he might turn, stay at Liberty to ride off into the sunset. But you never know with these guys, and when you've been at the highest of the highs when it comes to coaching and you've coached in the SEC, sometimes it's hard to really swallow that pill of having to settle for a place like Liberty. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, you're ranked. Only loss you have is 37-36 to Wake Forest. And that was on the road. But then again, when you look at, other than the BYU win, I mean, you got Gardner Webb, which is a 1-point win over Gardner Webb. Then you played Old Dominion, UMass, Akron, UAB, and then you had Southern Miss, which was your first game of the season, 29-27 thriller and 4 overtimes. So if you want my honest opinion, I mean, it's not all that great when you look at their schedule. 7-1 is great, but it doesn't matter, because you know what? Arkansas wins this game, they're going to take a ranked win. A ranked win's a ranked win. You know what? If they're going to put them in the rankings at 23 or whatever, hey, cool. That does nothing but help Arkansas out when it comes to they run the table and they get to a good bowl game, hey, these guys got ranked wins over Liberty and BYU and Cincinnati. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't – Arkansas' schedule, when you look at it, doesn't look as confident as it did begin with. So, like, I can't remember who was saying it, but, we keep on saying Arkansas's got the toughest schedule 3 years in a row. But when you look at it now on the back end, it's really not that tough. Cincinnati's not the team we thought they were. Liberty might not be the team we looked at, but we're coming in the game you cannot take lightly because, again, that 3-game winning streak is going to sound really good coming into the LSU game that you're really going to have to play up for. You're really going to have to give it your all to keep things rolling.
Right. And another thing to think about is Arkansas's, they're looking to get bowl eligible with a win against Liberty. And that's the big thing with Sam Pittman is when he sets goals, his team usually responds. I mean, they responded in 2020 when nobody thought Arkansas was going to win a single conference game in a 10-game conference schedule. And they went out there and won 3, had one taken away from them, and was a 2-point conversion away from being 5-5 the first year. And then 2021, your back's against the wall after a 3-game losing streak to Auburn, Georgia, and Ole Miss, and he responds. He brings Larry the bowling ball in and brings excitement back into this program. And that's the thing, though. Arkansas's got SEC size, SEC speed, and they had the want to. I think Sam Pittman's one of the better motivating head coaches in all of college football too, because his players respond to him when their backs are against the wall. And I don't have a doubt in my mind that Arkansas goes out and takes care of business on Saturday, looking forward to LSU in the Battle of the Boot.
Well, and he don't BS you. I mean, he tells you straight up. I mean, that's the thing. I think he's a nonchalant motivator. He's not one of these where he has to yell and scream. And, other than turn the damn jukebox on and that stuff, but he don't have to every week. I think it's at the point, Jacob, where – antics and sayings and all these things can only get you so far when it comes to where you're building your program. I think they're at the point now where, look, man, we need to believe in each other. You need to believe in me. I need to believe in you. If we're going to win this thing, okay, enough with the antics, enough with the sayings. We need to go out there and play ball because, those sayings and those antics and those props don't mean anything if you're losing. And I think it's time. You got the veteran squad that you have. And if you really want to go on a run, I think it's time for them to band together like brothers, put on a show, go on a 3 to 4 game winning streak, and close this season out with a 4 or 5 game winning streak.
Yeah. And I told a lot of people this too. I mean, I even hyped it up as a 10-11 win team, and they can still get to that 10-win threshold if they continue to take care of business. And I was a believer in the hype. I thought, you had a starting quarterback coming back. You had a Rocket Sanders who I thought could really bust under the scene in college football. And I thought the defense was going to be able to be, you had the defensive line, you had linebackers covered, you had defensive backs I thought was going to be better. And then they got injured. And the thing is, like, Arkansas had to fight adversity. And that's where I'm trying to get to this point here, is that they've had to fight every single week. They've had to fight injuries. They've had to even fight back from bad decision-making, penalties, ill-timed penalties. Like, you think about Arkansas, especially on the injury side of things, they're not ready to compete at that next level with the Alabamas and the Georgias. They need to, right now, be focused on competing with the LSUs, the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States, the teams that are in the same tier as you right now. And and like that 3-game losing streak earlier in the season, they did not have the depth at that point to really compete. And it goes back to, the 2020 year was lost because of COVID. And then the 2021 recruiting class, you really were set behind there because you couldn't really evaluate anybody. And now you're finally getting to where you are outperforming. Kind of like what we said about Musselman last week. He's overachieved with what the talent that he's had on his rosters. Pittman's overachieved with a bunch of walk-ons, a bunch of 4-stars. He's blending these guys together to really prove like, hey, all we need is you. And I think you can come in and start for us and play for us, and we can take that next leap. And I think that's a good recruiting pitch. Is saying, you see what we did in developing these guys like Grant Morgan and Hudson Clark and some of the offensive linemen and so many of these players that were hanging around during the Chad Morris era. I think that's a big thing too. I don't know where I was going with it, but I think right now going into you want to compete for championships. Now is the time if you're wanting to close out and say, hey, we finished 9-3. We're a game better, a game ahead of where we were last year. Go out and finish, and then go out there and recruit your butt off again and get better for next season.
Yeah.
So I really think that that's a big key is the way you finish. You can tell your recruits saying, hey, you see what we're doing at Arkansas. We'll be even better with you on wearing the Razorback red.
Yeah, and I've modeled, what D'Antonio did at Michigan State with molding the 3 stars in the stars,
Right.
In how they recruited. And, somebody brought a good point. These elite schools don't have to recruit anymore. They can pick and choose whoever they want, but you got to have depth. And that's the one thing that Arkansas is lacking. And I know it's hard, but there's sometimes as fans and as media, as content creators, anybody that's connected with the program, there's just some point in time where we got to realize that we're not going to get the classes year in and year out that Alabama gets, that Georgia gets, that all these people get. We're just not, unless they just start funneling money to everybody. We're not going to do it because Alabama's already pretty much said, all right, go ahead and start throwing money at these players. If that's the way you want us to do it, we don't want to do it that way. But if that's how we're going to play, that's what we're going to do. And this is not to poke fun at the university at all, but it's almost like they put out a tweet or put out a statement saying, collectively, we've given out over $1 million in NIL money. That's laughable because there's people getting paid $1 million to play the game. And I don't know if this is just what's coming through the flagship program or what, but it's still it's like you put that out there and it's like, come on, like we've got to get to the point. If you want, and this is what we said beginning of the year with KJ and everybody's talking about top 3 quarterback. If you want to be a top 3 quarterback, you have to be treated like a top 3 quarterback. If you want to be a top 3 program in the SEC, you got to start acting like a top 3 program in the SEC. You need to start recruiting. You need to start winning. You can't lose games like they did against Texas A&M if you want to be considered a top 3 program in the SEC. And it's almost like we're not, throwing in the towel, but it's almost like, okay, we need to start getting better players. We need to start getting the depth because all we've seen now is 1 player gets hurt or 2 players get. So basically you had 2 players, Catalon, Slusher, get hurt. All right. You had 2 leave in the transfer portal. Any other team, you could have been okay. That totally decimated your defense. If you want to grow up and you want to get bigger and bigger in the SEC, you got to be able to take those losses and plug and play and still compete because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what Georgia's doing. Look at Tennessee, what they're doing with Hooker. I mean, they got guys coming in the transfer portal, and they're going to be All-Americans. That's what we need on the offensive side of the ball. We need people to come in, and they can be producing. They can be considered All-Americans like Burks was. But you're going to need more of it. You're going to need an offensive line that can block. You're going to need a defensive line that can pass rush. And that's why I'm saying, guys, give it time because it takes time to get to where your classes where you can play freshmen. And it's not basketball where a freshman, you got 5 freshmen on the floor. It's going to take time to get those freshmen from a high school level to an SEC level defensive line or linebacker or whatever. So it takes time, but that's where if you're going to start winning, you have to start winning in the recruiting battles. You started flipping these players, and you cannot live and die on the transfer portal. You can't do it because it's not a sustainable market.
No, you've got to recruit your high school guys, and then get those guys ready. But while those guys are in waiting, plugging you in some transfers. Get you some guys like Drew Sanders, Dwight McLaughlin.
Well, yeah.
Who've truly come in and done well, started well, and playing high-level football. Can you imagine? I don't know if Drew Sanders is going to come back to Arkansas next year, but I think McLaughlin can come back. I think you've got pieces and the experience to come back. And even though we came at them with pitchforks, another year of experience under Barry Odom and stuff, and the way that these guys have played in the second half of this season outside of the miserable 3-game stretch, Arkansas seems to be turning it around. And yeah, you got to think about the quality of opponent on defensively who you played, but the second half of the BYU game and the whole game against Auburn, I mean, Arkansas looked pretty steady and looked like they're ready to turn the page, being about 98% healthy.
Well, and you look at the transfer portal, and and I'm not saying it's easy. It's easier.
No,
it's easier on the defensive side of the ball to bring a guy in, plug him into the linebacker, or cover zone. You're going to cover this zone. You're going to go with this player. You look at Landers, and this is why I'm saying you cannot live and die off of the transfer portal. We were wondering, when's he going to step it up? When are we going to have this receiver step it up? We've even seen it with Hazelwood, where he's had lapses where he's not produced. You got these guys that are coming in fresh, trying to connect with a quarterback who's seasoned. So you've got a guy like KJ. He is expecting you to know exactly where you need to be, where you need to go, and where you're going to be on this read.
Yeah.
If you're not clicking, it's not happening. Now we're looking at Landers. It's November. Almost November. So end of October, and he's just now clicking. In the game of college football, that's nice to have if you've got another guy or two behind him. But that's exactly the point I'm making. When you can't live and die off the transfer portal on the offensive side of the ball, is because it takes a while to click and get into that scheme. Now we're going from Kendall Browse. He don't know how to play calls. He don't know how to do this. He do that. Now they're the 13th best offense when it comes to average. I wouldn't say I guess in a way you could say they're the 13th best offense in the country, because when you're going on average total yards, but however you want to play it, if you don't want to say they're the 13th best offense in the country, okay, that's cool. They still have the 13th top rated offense when it comes to average yards per game. 5 weeks ago, we weren't saying that, but it takes clicking. It takes cohesiveness and leadership. KJ's a good leader, but what happened when he was out? Who's your leader that's automatically going to step up? Catalan goes out. Who's automatically going to step up and be that guy? That's what you need when you're going to be an elite SEC team. Your guy goes down. All right, I'm stepping up automatically.
Yeah, and Arkansas doesn't have that yet. Not as far as replacing All-American with a guy
that's the thing. That's no knock on this team, because look,
no, not at all.
Because you can't train somebody to be that leader. That's just that is built in. That is in their DNA, and that is no knock on the player at the University of Arkansas. When I say they don't have that leader on the defensive side of the ball, that's not knocking anybody, because that you can't teach that. You can't train that. You can't put somebody in practice and say, okay, you're going to be the captain. Yeah, you could put that C on their jersey. But when it comes to, hey, you're here. Hey, man, you missed that tackle, man. Get your head up. We're going to get it the next play.
Yeah.
That's what they need. They need dogs, and they need leaders. But that's what's going to take where it comes to it's hard, again, when I bring in the transfer portal, it's hard to get a guy that's going to be that leader on a defense when he's a one-year player, because he can try, but yet when you don't know the defense, you don't know the schemes, and you don't know, it's hard to produce and be a leader at the same time when you have not been in the program for more than a year.
Yeah. Let's get real quick and talk about that exhibition game against Texas. I know we're running low on time. So Arkansas lost 90-60 to Texas in an exhibition game. I know you have your opinions on it. I know a lot of people have their opinions on it, and I don't think the sky's fallen yet. I think they needed this just to and Musselman alluded to that during his press conference, and I'm going to let you take the floor.
Well, and here's the deal. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because I joked about it. I want to take ownership on it. I joked about, hey, Texas is taking the broadcast off. They're scared to play Arkansas. I made a thing about right before the game. I was trying to get on the Stats broadcast. They had it locked. Are they trying? And then for Texas to come out and beat Arkansas. So I have to take ownership about here I'm making a joke about it, thinking that Arkansas is just going to run away with it, that Texas was scared to play Arkansas. And there was a lot of people that shared that same thing, but still yet it was what I said. So I got to own that. Hey, look, I was completely wrong. I thought that Arkansas was going to come out with their starting five. They were going to play it like a serious game and they were going to put it on them, but they didn't. They played everybody just like they did in the first exhibition game. You know,
Yep.
Pinion's, I'll tell you what, another one that's really surprised me is Pinion. He is making the most out of his minutes in the first two. And I know it might be exhibition and he might not get much playing time during the season, but you know what? He is making the most out of the opportunity he's getting. But the point I want to make is it's almost like when you have a new team and you play somebody like Texas, I think it was not like necessarily a setup, but it was almost like he wanted them to take them down there, play a seasoned team, get their butts whooped, humble them a little bit, and be like, look, guys, this is what you got to expect every Wednesday and Saturday in the SEC, because now you've got you've got all these freshmen, all this hype. You've got what 11 new faces, or 10 new faces, 11 new faces on your team. So you've got this target on your back of being this highly touted team. You go down to Texas, they're opening a new center, they're doing a charity event, and they beat you by 30. So you come back to Fayetteville, tail between your legs, you got humbled, but guess what? The best thing about it is it has no bearing on your record. When that committee meets and you get that seating, that Texas game has nothing to do with where you're going to be seated. It has nothing to do with where you're going to go. So you take the loss, you take the butt whooping, you come back to Fayetteville, and you get ready for the real season that comes up next week.
Yeah. And you got plenty of time to really get ready for this season or really get ready for Maui, honestly, because you got that. You got a 3-game homestand. You've got North Dakota State, and you've got South Dakota State, and you've got Fordham. So you've got 3 games to really get your get oil on them on your gears and really get things going, because they're not going to stay down long. And Nick Smith is too good of a player to really say that my effort against Texas on Saturday was not who I am. And I really think that Arkansas has a chance here.
Playing time. I don't think they played him a lot of minutes though.
No,
I don't.
No.
I'm not taking anything. The list of players he played was that long. I think he had a plan of going down there and playing all his players. It's going to be a totally different deal. But no, I mean, you can't take anything away from that Texas game. I mean, other than, hey, look, this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
But the good thing about it is you can go to Maui and go 0-2 or 0-3. It doesn't mean nothing, because Musselman has a tendency of January, February clicking it, and they go on a run. And now they're going from a 7 seed, 8 seed on that bubble 8-9 game. Now they're a 3-4 seed. So no, I mean, and we can even jump into when it comes into conference play on where they're at. They're probably going to lose some games that they're supposed to win, but I'm telling you, this team's going to be very good. They're going to surprise some teams because of the fact that, and I think they're going to surprise some of our own fans, just how good they are. Now, when you have that showcase, that Showtime offense, I want to see defense. Because if they start just letting people run with them, it's not going to be good when it comes to SEC play.
No, not at all. Because, I mean, you saw how it happened last year. You know, Arkansas was – every time they would try to get back in the game against Oklahoma last year, and they tied the game, and, okay, Arkansas is going to run with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to run with Arkansas, and Arkansas was kind of chipping at it, and then Oklahoma, you got tired. And that's the thing, though, too. You can't just, run the fast break offense the whole game. You've got to run sets. You've got to play some defense on and slow down your opponents too. And I still think, like I said a couple weeks ago, I think Arkansas is still going to win a lot of games, 70-55, just because of their defense. I don't, and you got to think about it. You said it too. Like, Texas is a veteran team. It seems like Timmy Allen and Dessou and And some of those guys that are on the Texas roster have been there for 10 years. I mean, they're a very veteran team, and I think I think Musselman might have actually intended on this happening so he could get the attention of his team. Because even in his press conference, he said that his team had a bad week of practice, and they were absolutely not ready for this game. And yeah, we've seen Arkansas get slapped in the head quite a few times, where it's 20 or 30-point losses and things just turn around. It's better to get it out of the way early than get it in late February, early March.
And then when it don't count, like I said, other than the European tour, this is the first legit game. We don't know. They could have been playing against 15-year-olds. We don't know the type of players they had over there in Spain and Italy, wherever they played at. But this is the first game, true game, like this type of competition they've ever played together. So I take nothing away from it. I mean, and this is the thing: fans are going to expect it, and they're going to see them fall. And hey, that's why they're fans. They have every right to be that way. As long as we're not calling for Musselman's job after an exhibition loss, we're okay. But this team's going to be fine. They're going to meet our expectations, and I think it's next Monday. Correct? They play against North Dakota State. Yeah. So hopefully there won't be any streaming issues where they try to cut you off and do all that stuff. But Jacob,
it'll be on SEC Network. Yeah, the game will be on SEC Network Plus Monday night at 7 p.m.
All right. Well, hey, that will do it for another Sunday edition of the Hog Talk podcast. Tomorrow night, we will have the weekly women's sports report. We'll talk some women's basketball, soccer, playing in the SEC soccer tournament, volleyball, playing Florida. And then we will have, instead of Wednesday night, due to a basketball game that I'll be at the women's exhibition game against UFAS, we are going to do our weekly preview show on Thursday. We'll have the guy from Sea of Red covering Liberty. So that's going to be around 6:30-ish coming up on Thursday. So that will do it for the Hog Talk podcast. We will catch you tomorrow.